Hello everyone, this is Space Cafe Podcast and I am Marcus. My kids asked me the other day if we could go to a Nirvana or Guns N' Roses concert. I'm proud, it seems like I did everything right as a father. Regarding Nirvana, I told them things could be a bit tricky, but Guns N' Roses have been on tour since they reunited their legendary lineup. It's been 35 years since the band edged itself into my neural networks and has apparently become part of my cultural memory. And why? I guess because they made good music, and B, they were maladjusted and still are. It's interesting, by the way, to see that the English language uses maladjusted for both nonconformist and socially dysfunctional, with a focus on mental imbalance. Whatever. The surest way to be remembered is not to follow the trends. Ideally, do the opposite. Wherever possible, stay off the beaten path and face the morning hangover with your arms wide open. No matter the cost, there is no tomorrow. Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules. Legendary opening lines sung by Steve Jobs, the Axl Rose of the entrepreneurial world. Well, perhaps a little milder now and then. The crazy ones is what remains both in a negative and positive sense. The rest won't be remembered, and that's 99% of us, I guess. My guest today is looking for those crazy ones, the nonconformists, the maladjusted. In 1986, Guns N' Roses published a song called Rocket Queen on their seminal debut album. My guest today is also in search of the king, the rocket queens and kings of the day of the new space era. Those who will be remembered because they helped humans go where no one has gone before. Please welcome Frank Salzgeber.
That's me.
Head of the Technology Transfer Program of the European Space Agency, ESA.
It's my pleasure. So, Frank Salzgeber, Head of Innovation and Ventures at the European Space Agency and the Directorate of Telecommunication and Integrated Application. And for all our space engineer friends, I'm sorry, I'm not a space engineer. I'm an industrial engineer, and I've worked for Apple. I had my own
Okay, the show is over.
That was okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, goodbye.
2003, ESA hired me as a head of commercial development of human spaceflight, and I worked for Apple, and I met Steve, and then I said, working with astronauts, come on, this is something, it's brilliant. If you have that chance, you have to take it. And this is how I slipped into ESA. And then the last, I would say, 16 years, I was taking care partly of the patent portfolio, the tech transfer. We built up all the ESA incubation centers. So we started with 6 startups. I think ESA supported 1,200 now. And now this part is gone to the new director of commercialization industry and policy and procurement, not policy, sorry. And I'm still in TIA, and now we're looking a little bit more for the later stage. So I would say the only thing that I can do is commercial stuff. Stuff, impossible stuff, the projects which nobody thinks will ever survive because there is no market. So we still have our offices in a barracks and say it's the yellow submarine. It was in ESA or the aliens in ESA, however you want to call it. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Speaking of barracks, I don't know what it looks like at ESA. I know a little bit about CERN, the particle physics guys, and I was totally astounded when I went for the first time to Geneva. I expected that shiny sci-fi top-notch place. And what I found was I would say, post-German separation situation, barrack-style research center. I mean, like, seriously, a world-renowned research center set up of barracks. What I found out a couple of minutes later is that everything is invested in technology. So seeing the control rooms and all that, that was the sci-fi place I was looking for. So is that similar at ESA?
No, it's not so bad. And I think over the year it's changed. But I think we can still do better because when you want to have bright people from all over the world in Europe and working on great ventures, it should be also the right surrounding. So I think to invest in and a good story when I was studying in Munich, I had to work next to my study because my father kept me pretty short with the pocket money. So I started as a young, I would say, support engineer, however you want to call it, as a student at Apple. And in every corner of that building, there was a coffee shop, not a coffee shop like in the Netherlands, but where you have coffee, cola, water. It was just for free. It was just for free because they said, come on, these people working sometimes nights and day. And what we as managers have to accomplish is bringing and giving them a surrounding where they give their best.
And so keep you awake by inducing coffee in vast loads.
So I think investment in buildings and in places to make it that the people are happy, I think it's a good investment because with this you invest in people.
Absolutely. So you mentioned Apple, you mentioned Steve Jobs. So you met him, right?
Yes.
Was he a mentor to you?
No. This is it was in the 90s. He was just returned, and in the story, I'm not sure if I should tell that because I was a pretty young sales manager and account manager at the time even. And when you're in the 20s, and if you maybe not so comfortable with the way you behave and you don't have this big experience, you compensate a lot of stuff, a little bit of yourself with clothes. So I was going across Cupertino with some VIP customers. It is a nice story. There's a reason I have to tell you. And I had a 3-piece Hugo Boss suit, 3-piece, super modern, super chic in Europe. No, so and I had a buddy there, which was a manager of FileMaker, a software company, and he was I remember he was Irish, but he was nearly 2 meters high. So, and he had a dark, loud voice. So we met in the canteen, and then when he saw me from far coming to me, and then he said, "Hey, Salzgeber, Frank, look at yourself, you bloody overdressed. If I knew CIO would see you, Steve Jobs." Who was coming into the canteen? It's true story. Who was coming into the canteen? The new boss. He heard his name. He was coming to us. I was introduced. Frank, that's Steve Jobs, and Steve, that's Frank, and he's from Europe. And he was looking down to me and said, "I see."
Thank you so much.
Don't ask me for the rest of the conversation. Don't ask me for the rest of the conversation because I still got a red hat when I'm thinking about this uncomfortable situation. And I think a half a year later on the sales meeting, he was coming in, and then he recognized.
You were just wearing black,
and I had a polo shirt, and he's a much better dressed Frank, and everybody was saying how he knows the boss. So therefore, make the best out of every situation.
Nice, but that's a good advice. Maybe to intentionally overdress to get seen, because I mean, like if you had shown up in a black polo, you wouldn't have been seen, maybe. So
that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I never saw it that way, but trust me, you will not like the situation when you're in. Huh?
Right. Wonderful. You're often quoted as saying that you are looking for the crazy ones. Of course, that is also pretty much what Steve Jobs was all about. So this was why I was asking if he was a mentor to you. But anyway, what makes a crazy one to you? How do I determine if I am crazy enough for you?
No, I do not know, Marcus. Yeah, I think what you do with Space Cafe is already awesome. Yeah, I think when you started with this and SpaceWatch.Global, all the people said, "Nah, we don't need that," and so I think when I speak with startups and coach them, I say when you get a letter from a lawyer and they say what you do is not correct because you infringe I don't know these rights and it's crazy. It's always a good point, because if competition is unhappy, this is a sign that you're on the right route. I'm quoting our previous director general, Mr. Dordain, and he said, He said, Frank, I'm a mechanical engineer. And in mechanical engineering, if you do something new, you have friction. And if you have no friction, you do something wrong. And my answer was, okay, then we do something terrible right because we have so much friction. So friction is a good sign. So, and crazy one means then that you have people which maybe ignore. People want stopping you, ignoring and continue the path. And Marcus, you come from Austria, and and also have Austrian roots. I have Austrian. In skiing, you fall, but you have to stand up.
Right.
If you go ice skating, you fall, you have to stand up. If you go bicycle the first time, you fall, you have to stand up. And so the craziness means also with the robustness of your willingness to go along
to
with
get
the
up again.
idea.
Okay, good. So what's the craziest idea that you've come across in all those years? Speaking of crazy people, I mean, like the craziest, not the one you like most, but maybe the craziest.
This is now you really hit me. Yeah? I think it was using bacteria for asteroid mining, which are used already on gold farms, and then using this later. Yeah, don't do it machine. So it's more the bioengineering. Maybe it's not the crazy, but I like that because a lot of good ideas come from not from the core business. Is when people think around the corner. And one of the ideas which I really loved is I think TU Delft was doing that, using nanobots and then change an asteroid into a spaceship in 300 years. And I think it's not a crazy idea because every farmer who has a forest thinks in 3 generations. What happens to our business model and our technology when we don't look to the 30, 40 years of a person who's working between 30 and 70 or whatever? What happens when we look into a time scale of 3, 4 generations? Because then you can do something which is totally impossible in 30 years or 10 years. And then it's changing the view.
What's your time scale? What time scales are you interested in?
You need both. There was a very good professor who sadly died, Jim March, which I'm a big fan of, and he said in innovation you have to do 2 things at the same time: exploration, and you have to balance exploration and exploitation. Exploitation makes things faster, lighter, better. This is what we do in the short term. And exploration is going to the moon, going to the Everest, going to the bottom of the sea. And you made a nice analog. And as a CEO or as a DG or a manager, you have to balance both, which is very difficult because when a company becomes older, you become less innovative or agency. And then when we are kids, we explore every day. When we become older, we exploit because we have more to exploit. But keeping that level to balance it off, it's very difficult. This is the reason why I think it's super important that the ESA is going to commercialization, supports startups. You have to support your own competition. Yeah, so otherwise you go into autopilot. And Microsoft founder Bill Gates said once very nicely, success is a lousy teacher because it teaches smart people to think that they cannot fail. So I think when you're a good manager in your organization, you try to make your own competition because then you're a part of it, you can control it. It's better this route, going down this route than somebody else makes competition. And a lot of startups knock on the door of all these corporates, but the door is closed. So the only way what they can do is kill their business. And that's just fair. That's good evolution.
Nice. So if CEOs of smaller or bigger corporations are listening at the moment to our podcast, so maybe, if I understand you correct, Frank, it's essential to look for friction inside, in one's own corporation, one's own company, to build up competition, to set up a department that maybe has the potential to do something better than another department. So you're producing creativity and innovation in that way. Is that right?
Marcus, you're absolutely right. And we go back to Apple. There was a time, and there's a nice movie which I think you get at YouTube. It's called The Pirates of Silicon Valley. It's the start of Apple and Microsoft, and we it was shown at I think only a short time, and the actor was coming in the Meltmart Expo, and then Steve was coming in. And there's a scene which I really like where the people in the Macintosh, in the Apple II team. Apple II was a big box. This is where Apple made really money. And then Steve was making a separate team next to it called the Macintosh team. And the Apple II team hated it because they spend our money, they have no sales, but we run the show. So this was the past, and the Macintosh was the future. So I think there's one job title which I said last year on some events, which I'm still keen to get before I get totally retired. It's the Chief Devil Officer.
Nice. So, Chief Devil, not development officer?
No, forget develop. It's the devil officer who gives a shit and say, come on, ladies and gentlemen, this we don't do. That makes no sense. Huh? Or why not partnering with this company or opening the doors and embrace innovation coming from outside? So I think it should be not the digital officer or diversity. It's all important, yeah. But I think if you want to, Alan Grove, the head of Intel, once said when he was still CEO of Intel and made Intel big, as a CEO, you have to be paranoid. Maybe not panic, but a little paranoid does not help. It does help. Huh? So the Chief Devil Officer on the ranking of a board member. Come on, Marcus, then what's your job? Huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I can already see the thumbnail, like the horns. I can already see. I don't know the rest, but I like that devil. And the company itself, what would it be called?
It does not matter which company, yeah. So Curiosity.inc, bulldozer.org.
Yeah, I'm buying the domains as we speak. Okay.
Yeah, very good. It's all gone. It's all gone, Marcus.
It's gone. Damn it.
Frank book. Yeah, Frank book.
Yeah. Frank, there's this old cliche about Silicon Valley as being the cradle and hotbed for the crazy ones, for the ideas. Is Europe catching up?
I do think so. And I remember a day when I was still with Apple, and we had a fantastic event with a university in Berlin, which was looking for new money coming from the Deutsche Bank 24. That was in the end of the 90s. And Nicolas Negrobonte was getting a honor professorship. And he's the founder of the MIT Media Lab. So he invented multimedia, you can say. And then later we went to the Paris New York bar, and then he told me a story about and what is the problem with entrepreneurship in Europe that time. And his son was creating a startup in Boston, and his mom was coming over from the UK. And at the second Christmas day, his mom said to Nicholas, are you aware that your son is unemployed? So being the board member or founder of a company was unemployment. And then in that time he said, Frank, that's the problem in Europe. And I think that has changed. Entrepreneurship is becoming back something which is very valuable. And I think we totally forgot that. When we look into the German market, there were so many entrepreneurs. If it's Mr. Bosch who said, I don't want to work in an environment where I don't have competition. A lot of big companies, which are big corporates today, they have started small. But maybe we have lost that, these excitements, this hunger to do something different. But come on, space startups, trust me, 15 years ago, we were the underdogs in ESA. Now startups are taking big contracts in ESA. And our new director general with commercialization also targets that.
Because the friction you mentioned is happening right now. So back in the day, there was too little going on in the field, in the space world. Now you have all the competition from wherever on the planet. And of course, this produces friction and innovation. So maybe it's just the right moment in time at the moment.
I agree. I think there was never a better time to invest, to work in space entrepreneurship. It's the decade of space. And everybody who's listening to your podcast knows that what you see in the press, in the news, in TV, 10 years ago, we were not so present. And it's not only Elon Musk, it's a lot of companies. You know, I'm super proud that some of them we supported, ClearSpace, ESA Aerospace, Manaric, Hyber, Open Cosmos, and Spire, name them. That's good. You know, maybe not everybody will survive. It's also fair. But I think this you learn with evolution. Evolution brings up new species. It's the Columbian point of space entrepreneurship.
Sure. I mean, like, speaking of evolution, this is what evolution is all about, to try something out, dump it if it doesn't work, and do something else. But this is a mindset that we in Europe maybe need to evolve to stick to the term, to keep up with the Americans.
But also, Marcus, I think we had that. Maybe we were becoming too lazy,
complacent,
to not energetic enough. Because when you're looking to evolution, there's only two ways: die out or evolve. There's nothing in between. And even when there's a government who was pumping billions in Stockholm subvention, this is not incubation. I call it intubation. You keep a patient alive, which is. So, and I think this you should stop. You invest in the things. If it doesn't work, sunk costs are sunk, and then, but diversity
make it better.
Helps.
Sure, absolutely. So, where is because we're speaking, or we have been speaking so much about Silicon Valley. I mean, like, not in this podcast, but in general. So Silicon Valley has been for such a long time always the place when it comes to innovation, technology. So where is China these days? Is China already a player that is comparable to Silicon Valley when it comes to innovation, or maybe already beyond?
It's a good question, Marcus. I'm not the specialist for China, but I believe that the openness of your mind and also the way that you criticize each other and then you can continues is good for innovation and for the spirit. And therefore the comparison in America, when you're looking not only at Silicon Valley, but also Boston and the mindset there that retry and restart something. I think it's pretty tough when you have failed in China to restart. I'm not a China specialist, but I doubt that this is seen as something, and the trust between the people I heard is not very high because the fear is a bad motivator. So, but that's my limited view. But it's the same, I think, in Europe. You know, when maybe if you have the wrong education, that decentralizing is more powerful than centralizing the power.
I completely agree that this may be the case, and this is why maybe the United States still have a lead in all of this. Do we, Europeans, have an edge in all of this? Do we have something that makes us special when it comes to innovation in a global context?
First, Marcus, when you're looking to a lot of entrepreneurs which are ending up in the US, they left Europe because they found better places
for
in
a
the
reason.
US. For a reason. So I think the diversity of Europe, the different countries, the different ways how we approach issues, I think we have here the land of the free, and it's not in the US, and I've lived there during my military time. It's not bad if you have really big money, but if you're a normal employee, it's pretty tough. So I think this is what we have in Europe. What I would like to see, especially from the corporates, that we invest in our brains here. I just spoke with an investor from the Silicon Valley this afternoon, and I said, for one aerospace engineer salary in the Silicon Valley, you get an army in some of the countries in Europe with the same education and on a higher loyalty level than in the Bay Area. So this is something. Most of the startup companies we have here, or cases or ventures, the evaluation is much more attractive. So this is the reason why more investors coming over to see what we're doing in Europe. The problem is we have to pump also the money into its scaling, maybe from finance more to asset finance and scale it up, because this is what is done. You have they get so much money that they just buy the competition and then you buy the market. And why we cannot buy the market? And I think in space, we are pretty good.
Nice. Frank, let's talk about your everyday business. So what keeps you busy? What's a typical day in your life?
maybe go today doing. I would not call it PR. I think what we do now with Space Cafe, I call it in Apple. There was a nice job title, evangelist. So it's the evangelisting part and praying and going out and my Jewish
spreading
Muslim,
the gospel.
Yes, they maybe forgive me the word of the evangelism. And so this is something. And then when you support companies, partners, industry, it's not a job of a day, of acceleration of 3 months. I don't believe in it. It's like helping the people for a long, long time, as long as they need them. So part of the job is, of course, administration part, and this goes back speaking with people in the team. Mr. Kuhnheim was the CEO from 73 to 90 something, very long. So he made BMW big. And then I was saying that there's 80% of the problem is about the people. The rest is about finance and technology and the rest. And I would love to have more time for that. Yeah, but which is important because it's the people. Fellowship comes only with leadership and vice versa. And then really, I believe proper work is that everybody who contacts you get an answer, either to somebody else. So that's a little bit work. Huh? It's the emails, the LinkedIn, but at least you should try to give them an answer, even if they say, sorry, I'm not the right one. But that has to do with professional work. And
Absolutely.
This goes back to values. Huh?
Absolutely. We're all busy people, but I think I can find 30 seconds in my very busy life to just reply to a message, even after 3 weeks of having it sit in my outbox. So maybe it's as you say, it's a matter of professionalism. But this,
you should try. You maybe not 100%. If you do 95, 99, I think you're doing already very great.
Yeah. So your work is to find technologies, promising technologies, and transfer them into different fields where they were not initially meant to be at, I guess. So is this
upstream and downstream?
Upstream. So is it bidirectional? So would you go look for ideas and technologies from the space industry and transfer them into different worlds, and at the same time go into different worlds and look for promising ideas for the space industry? So do you do both?
So the last 15 years I've done both, especially the tech transfer, which I was giving away 2 years ago, which is fine. I've done it long enough. And then we focused also on how we can support startups, how we can use applications, and theoretically you have to speak with customers, and this is our strength in our team, which are not the space area. Which is the real estate. I remember that we even had a technology transfer with the Vatican Library. So this is how we can really make the best out of the ideas and innovation. On the other side, which is our focus now, at the moment we speak with the car manufacturers in Europe, how they can use space, because they realize that the connectivity will be a big thing. But it's the same with the logistic, it's the IoT. Last week I was in contact with Texas Instruments. Is about how I also have to including the suppliers. So especially the non-space industry, the classical non-space industry, is doing everything in the day-to-day business, because without the backbone of space, which we have, navigation, Earth observation, telecommunication, our society will not run. Sure. And then you have crazy companies like Unio, which coming up with the idea to having a laser live backbone constellations in orbit. And these crazy ones, which are not crazy ones, they will do it anyhow. Manaric is aerospace, and then Walter Ballham with Reflex in Berlin is behind it. These ones you have to support. So I think sometimes the good way would be also being the shoehorn office. You know, you're arranging the marriage, you bring people together, and then later the funding and other tools coming. But if you have enough critical mass, we're back to CERN. You create enough gravity, you get a black hole, and then the people are over the event horizon.
Right, exactly. So it's in fact your job, and the job of your team is to bring in the creative momentum. So you would say, okay, I have on the left side, I have a shoemaker, and on the right side, I have, I don't know, a butcher. What can both of them do together in a room? What product comes out of that?
Yeah, they took the shoe ones. There was the rubber industry of tires with the shoe industry to make soles. Yes, this is something. So and then of course we the other part of the team helps with the marketing communication of the director of TIA. So therefore, and telecommunication remains the most commercial part in ESA.
Mm-hmm. Telecommunication, that's a tricky thing to say these days, because I mean, like, we're all seeing what Elon Musk and SpaceX are doing when with his Constellation project. I think that he has quite a bit of an edge and an advantage with this constellation, because I don't know if Europe is, or how far Europe is already with its own constellation. But speaking of which, I think that 5G will not be deployable by terrestrial means in the near future. So constellations are the centerpiece of any kind of technological progress in the future, I guess. Yeah.
This is the discussion what the car manufacturers also see, because Marcus, you know that you just crossed the border from Salzburg, Austria to the direction to Munich, and then the Telekom Austria and Telekom Germany cannot agree who gets the signal, and you have 5 to 10 minutes no data connection. That's bad if you're in an autonomous car. So it's and 5G will come from satellite, and Europe will have constellations. I do not know how many. There are guesses around, but I think this is what we have to build up, because the advantage of a European system of European companies, and ESA should not do it, but ESA should support it. It's Europe, and this is also the great part of Galileo. It's not one country; it's European countries holding it. And I always saying which signal you would trust. This is my personal opinion, of course, but which signal you would trust, or other way around. Which signal will be manipulated for the military, the commercial, or the political interest of a country? The Russians, the American, the Chinese, or the Europeans. So having more people sitting on the table is an advantage in this case.
Absolutely. So I think it makes total sense to see an iteration of the Galileo project in the constellation, in the communication sector, because at the moment it seems like that countries are trying to set up their own constellations, and that in turn produces issues when it comes to space debris, I guess. So we're in a tricky situation these days.
Yeah, and constellation should be in private hand. That is my personal opinion, because the government is not always the best, I would say, commercial agent. So there are a lot of areas where it's good that it's in private hand, because it makes the things more cost effective. Maybe not with navigation, but I think with telecommunication, definitely it is. It has shown in the past, because the satellite dish on the roof of the houses, that's the space technology of the last millennium.
I don't agree here, because I mean, like, you wouldn't privatize water. You wouldn't do that. And I think telecommunication is no different to water these days. It's an essential part of our life.
Yeah, I think it's a good dispute. I think we get a bottle of wine and discuss it next time. Maybe this is the influence of the American corporation, which I was working too long, and they say, well, the private hand. I think it has to be a company, because this gives the freedom. So maybe the truth is in the middle. The frequencies, it's private airlines, but the rights of landing is with the state, something like that.
Yeah. Frank, how do you find your promising ideas? Do you have scouts all over the place? Messengers?
I think and one of the advantage why the network which ESA has built up, the Business Incubation Center, is not done alone. We've done that always in cooperation. And CERN, by the way, have adopted the incubation policy. And the Czech Republic is really taking that. So there are two ways how you can rule a system. Either you centralize it like the Catholic Church, and you have the power in the center, or you do more the Protestant, the bootstrap way. And forgive me now with these analogies, but maybe they're totally wrong. But we are only as good as our local partner. And this is the ETH Zurich, it's the Lund University, it's Czech Invest, it's the Howell campus with STFC, and this makes us strong because they know the local market, Science Park in Graz. So they know the local market, they speak the local language and can help locally. And what ESA brings is the internationalization, the structure, the logo, the overall funding. So I think these matching what was making the success. So our local partner know what's going on in the local region. Every business is local. And this is why ESA has these 66 locations in 23 incubation centers. And ESA pays only, now it comes the hard part, I think 40% of the overall cost. The rest is done and paid locally. So it's really a partnership. And having with this diversity, that makes us strong, because what I always explain to the companies, when you're sitting in Lund, with the partnership we have, you also have an office in Zurich with that big there. So if you need to speak to IBB, I'm sure they know them. So, and this is more, it's the same when you're a student and go travel and say, we have an uncle in Singapore. That's your first drop-off point when you are there, because it's a safe haven. And therefore, it's more than the funding and more than networking and the branding. It's this, with every new partner, you become bigger. And I hope that we get also more partners outside of Europe, because it's good for Europe if good ideas come to Europe. And we give our companies the hand and the helping hand also to go internationalization without risking so much.
So can you describe a typical cycle of collaboration between you and a young startup? How does that work?
So there's something called the innovation funnel. So the first thing, I'm a salesperson. It's in the mountains in Allgäu, we have a saying: if you need a glass of milk, you don't buy a cow. And a lot of people know me, have heard this story so many times. But it's much cheaper. There a farmer doing that, you go there, or you go into the supermarket, you buy it. So if I have a partner who's doing that, I rather prefer to give it to the partner than do it itself. It's not a very engineering-like approach. Engineers love to do it themselves. So we're supporting a lot of competition, Act in Space, the Galileo Master, the Copernicus Master, and so on. This is where you find new ideas, hackathons, and so on. But it's so important that you combine it to the next layer. And a lot of organizations are doing not that correctly, because they just make an event, but the work is before and after event. Once you have the idea, creating and helping them to create a company, then when you have a company, bringing them to the next layer, that they have a product and a prototype, helping them to raise the funding. Entrepreneurship is not a sprint. It's not a marathon. It's a decathlon.
Right.
Yeah, you have to do many things at the same time.
So what does helping mean? Is that financial support, or do you bring in expertise?
And this depends really on the timeline where you are. And sometimes we have that funding, ESA programs and all meals. But it means also the ESA branding, because you can say, come on, we have maybe 5 people, but we are an ESA startup. So that helps. It's really wind in your sails coming from the back. And then it's the networking, because if you call and knock on the door of a big corporate, and this is sometimes, this is part of my work. When I have a little bit free time, I call it the wingman program. Yeah, this is maybe the guys know that when you're on the bar and say, guy, the lady, can you introduce me? And so we introduce them to corporates. It's not dirty work, but it costs time, but it really helps, because we do the introduction, we place them on events, and then the people queuing to meet them, and not the other way around. So this is it's cost effectively in terms of manpower, not in cash. But it depends very much where you stay. So therefore, until you are big, even the big corporates have issues. I remember that we were spoken with ClearSpace, and Luke asked me to speak with one of the potential investors, and it was Swisscom Ventures, and they invested finally. So it's not my job, not my success, but sometimes you need somebody who helps you to go the last 10 centimeters from the mile. And I think this is what ESA can do, and therefore it's correct that we don't take a share. We are the only one are really neutral and follow you up for years. So, and I think that is something, also de-risking until the point that maybe industry and VC can take over. Huh?
You've been funneling over 1,000 startups through your
1,200.
1,200. Wow, incredible.
So, not me, the network, yeah?
Yeah, so the network. The network. Yeah. So, but I guess some kind of pattern must become visible if you have so much experience. So is there a pattern? Is there something where you would see that startups are particularly good at this and are particularly bad at that? And so is there something that could be interesting to understand?
I'm not as wise as you hope that I should be. When we did the selection, and this is something we use the ESA selection system and the criteria we choose jointly, and we still have them over all the years. And it's similar that every VC is doing. First, it's team, business model, business case, and then we look to the technology. And this is you see when a good team works. Are they capable to stand up when they fall? Are they capable to change the business model? Are they reluctant to take advice? And you see, you get more sensitive and you say, wow, there's a crazy idea, but these people I trust. They can do that. So this is the gut feeling you have, and this is also, come on, every VC is doing the same. Right. The rest, the due diligence is covering the ass.
Sure.
Nobody, maybe some people grill me for that, but after being so many boards, and of course you get a feeling for that. Sometimes you're wrong, but you become better and better.
But there's something between the lines. Sometimes you get a feeling for it. Give me an example. What was a crazy project that no one believed in?
It's one of my favorite one because it's so successful, and a lot of people still complain. And I always mention it. It's Lilium Aviation in Munich, which is electrical UAV company making electrical vertical landing planes. So this company was kicked out of aerospace cluster in Munich, and these 4 students they were really on the bad mood. They were in the bad mood because they had such big dream, and they said, no, it will never work. And so on. And they were coming to us in the incubation center in Bavaria. We two together with the state of Bavaria at that time, and the DLR is supporting it. And they made a fantastic pitch. You know, they had a prototype only as a drawing, and they said, this is what we should do. And then we had even a discussion because people said, come on, they want to make competition to Airbus and it will never work. And
we're still talking about that vertical car, right?
Yes, Lilium, which I don't know how many million they got now, 800, a billion, something like this, 800 people now. So, and I said, if we do not help them, who else does?
Sure.
So, and our job is to help them and not to reject them because it's their risk. We were chipping in 50K, yeah? It was peanuts. And then we helped them with a marketing campaign on the ESA website. It went viral, 1.3 million clicks.
Wow.
We placed them at the Future of Mobility at BMW. It's not our success, but sometimes you need this little bit help from behind. Sure. And they made it. And now Mr. Enders is in the board of the board of advisors of Lilium. So therefore they made a Spark in September in the US. So, and they are in Oberpfaffenhofen because there is the incubation center. Beautiful. So therefore I say, if they will win, I do not know. Yeah, I hope so. But sometimes our job is to de-risk. And the survival rate, which is still with 80%, I always saying is too high because that shows me we take not enough risk, or we have such good deal for however you want to take Basel, we can take it more risk. So therefore, this is ESA. We have to grow our own small trees that we have a huge forest in some years.
Nice. So how do the crazy ones among our listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah, the easy one, I was saying, I cannot clone myself. Next to CERN and ESA, we have other sister bodies, Emblem in Heidelberg. They do biotech and stuff. Maybe they can clone. So we try to be local. The best is contact one of the local ESA bigs. We have the same also for applications. So if you're not a venture, you're a company interested in, say, I have a project where I need space resources, assets, telecommunication, navigation, Earth observation, contact. There's a website you can Google is Space Solution. You say Space Solution, or this is the wrong shirt I have now. Nobody sees it. SpaceSolution.int, EINT. ESA Space Solution, and there you see the connection to the brokers, to the ambassadors for application and for startups. And they are the first step locally, because they can connect you locally and see also where the local support, where the other companies. So decentralizing was, I think, part of the success.
Nice.
What is the next big thing?
The next big thing, that's the good question. Now, seriously, are you looking for something special, like a special kind of technology? These days, you already mentioned constellations, telecommunication. Is that the thing that you're looking for? Or are you saying, bring it on, no matter what it is? Maybe we will find a hidden nugget now and then.
So there is an open innovation platform on the ESA website, just open innovation platform, OSIP platform, and where we have a lot of codes. So this is where you can dump everything, and people look over and so on.
Okay.
What I believe is I would love to see more non-space people into the market. Today, in the space resources preparation meeting in Luxembourg, there will be an event in May, and I will take care of the financial session. And I don't want to see VCs there, because everybody speaks about it. So my question is, can we not place a real estate fund? And I have one in mind, and speak about asset finance, because it's about financing infrastructure on the moon. And what is the difference between having a house in Frankfurt or infrastructure on the moon? It's just assets. So how you finance that? What are the mechanisms? I would love to see somebody from the Chicago Trade Board, which is the board which you trade orange juice, but also copper. Can we not trade the resources on asteroids to make it bankable? And the bankable, you need to refinance your business and invest into technology. So I think these business models and these, where we can, when you build a highway or a power plant, you refinance it. Yeah, you don't have that pocket money, and it's not the normal bank; it's the World Bank or the Asian Bank who is doing that. What we have to do to make space infrastructure bankable,
sure,
and the accessible is then the next step. This is what we have a project in TIA. It's called Moonlight, building the navigation and the telecommunication system for the moon. So, but we have to build it, or we push the industry doing it, and they can refinance it with other sources. So I think that is the thing we have to think about.
There is a tricky part, and that is space policies and treaties. And as of today, as far as I know, it's still impossible to sell property on the moon. It's still impossible to mine an asteroid, I guess. Please do correct me if I'm wrong. So this is a big part of international negotiations that have been going on for quite some time now, and that will be going on for quite some time. So how do you deal with that? Because you see definitely that there's a market for something, and there is an undecided momentum at the moment when it comes to international collaborations and policies. So how do you deal with that?
So going back to the moon, okay, you cannot send the land there, but if you have a power plant, different. You have a fueling station and you offer that service.
Sure.
The infrastructure is yours. Maybe not the land. If the land cannot be sold, who will take the land away? So it's a kind of borrow from the mankind, or from humankind.
Yeah.
So therefore, I say, if you make it bankable, then you can refinance it and you put it on the stock exchange. When you choose to hedge orange juice next autumn, or water on an asteroid in 10 years, what is the difference? You make a bankable product out of it. And this is what I mean. Yeah. And you can say, you need the sun and the rain to grow the oranges. Yeah, the sun and the rain belongs to the Lord. So
you can't ask him. Nice.
Don't wait for the legalization. This is what I love with Americans. And they have the law, by the way, with asteroids.
Yeah.
So go for it.
Yeah, go for it. This is what Elon does, right? He just does it. He's not waiting for some policymakers. This is important. I'm all for policy making. I'm not against policy making.
Yes.
But he just does his thing. And I mean, like, his constellation is in orbit, and he wasn't asking anyone because he wasn't asked to do so. Frank, at the very end of our beautiful podcast, we usually have a question that keeps repeating itself, but we have never gotten the same answer because it's all about a very personal approach when it comes to inspiring people. So why don't you give us an espresso for the mind that inspires us? And you can pick whatever topic you want to pick. Just something you think could be inspiring for our audience.
There's it's a tough one and an excellent one. There's one of my favorite movie, which I always make jokes when I'm frustrated with the administration in an organization. So every second day, no, just kidding. It's called Walking on Air, and it was made by a crew on the ISS. I think Andre Kuipers, my colleague, was there, where you see Earth from ISS and turning, and you see quick turn, the thunderstorms. So my choice is, and this is the smallest part of space, are the astronauts, and I think I have never met more inspiring people, and I think they're a good role model because none of them I met really thinks that they are the smartest of the world. You have to have one mission in ESA to get on a A4 grade, which is a good grade, but it's not so easy. You have to learn Russian in when you are 40. So they really do it because they want to do it. And they come back with that spirit and can even make jokes about themselves. And I remember when Andre Kuipers told me, Frank, and I was in the helicopter in Kazakhstan, they were giving me the mug of tea, and I was drinking the tea, and I placed the mug in the air. You know what? That mug was falling down. So I think inspiring is these people are good role models because they take
don't
themselves
do it for the money.
Yes, and they don't take them always so serious. Yeah. I think we take ourselves so serious, which does not allow to open the windows and let fresh air in and to laugh, because the work we all do is most of the time we spend our time at work. So how gifted you can be to find a work and a place which you love to do. Maybe not every day, not every hour, but most of the time, because this energy, this is inspiring. And when I see these people which do that with passion and love, this is my inspiring moments. And you see them, if you go with open eyes through the life, you see them everywhere. It might be the secretary, it might be the people carrying around parcels. They do it proper and they do it with a smile. And I see a lot of people which don't have that. And I feel sorry for that. So this is the inspiration which I want to share. And for me, it's the astronauts. For me are the startups which are writing then letters and say, thank you, without your group or without these and these people in your team, we wouldn't have made it. So this is a good gratification. It's sometimes better than money. Huh? Not that I don't need money, but so this is something where at least I get my inspiration from. And I can only share that. And if you open your eyes and ears, you find it everywhere, left and right. And this is the beauty of space. It has more passion, it has more heart, and it has more authenticity than maybe a lot of people think.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Frank Salzgeber, for that beautiful piece of inspiration. And thank you for taking the time to be on the podcast. It's a pleasure, Marcus.
You do a great, and Space Cafe is a great place of inspiration too.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here with us today. A little note on our own account. Over at SpaceWatch.Global, there's an ever-growing little young new universe of new offerings called Space Cafe Radios. Take a look. It's totally worth it. Young female voices on young space content. Do check it out. Thank you for sticking with us today. Bye-bye.